Alrighty. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video here on the Traveling Class. I want to let you guys know that we are traveling across the United States of America right now, all the way across the US of A, and we are here in the Navajo Nation in Monument Valley in Arizona. And I'm sitting right now with my friend Larson, also a tour guide that we've been working with here in Monument Valley with Navajo Spirit Tours. And I did want to sit down with him for a conversation about what it is to be Navajo and Navajo life here in the area. We're going to ask him some very basic questions to give you guys an insight about this really cool way of life, and also kind of just give you guys kind of that inside look on something that you might not have any idea about. So let's jump right into it. So I want to start off with asking you how old you are and where are you from exactly?
Well, I'm 27 years old. I'm from just right, I guess Monument Valley as a whole. A little, more Promise Rock is what we call it. So that's where I grew up. I was born in Tuba City. Parents moved around quite a bit when I was a little kid, and the last place they stopped was here and stuck around ever since then.
Very cool. First of all, do you know what the word Navajo means? Does it have a meaning?
So Navajo is actually a Spanish word, and it actually means, a Navajo is what it is. It's a long blade. And so it's a ratchet blade. So it folds up, into different like 90 degrees, 45 degrees, stuff like that, and stops there. But when the Spanish were coming through, they used to use that for duels, as sharp as a straight edge. And so instead of shooting with their pistols, that's what they would use. And to the Navajo people, when the Spanish encountered them, they said we were as aggressive or as deadly as the Navajo.
Oh.
And so that's how that word came about. But in Navajo, we call ourselves Dene.
Dene.
And that means the people.
The people.
And so, pretty much every Native American culture you ask, what the name is always going to be the people.
The people.
And so that's what Dene means.
Okay, so the next thing I wanted to ask you was, what does being Navajo mean to you? Because obviously when we were sitting here and experiencing just kind of a day in your life, we're learning a lot about the unity of the Navajo people with nature, with Mother Earth, and kind of the cycle of going to beauty, coming out of beauty, being a part of beauty, whether that be in nature, life, good and bad. So what does Navajo mean to you exactly?
Put me on the spot there.
That's fine. You can take a second to think about it.
No, I guess, being Navajo to me means, just being part of the landscape, just being, and I guess being in nature and being surrounded by nature. And just kind of, everything the Navajo culture kind of has to offer. Family, music, prayers, where everything's got that balance to it. So you got your male, female, good, bad. Navajo culture, you always have that path in life, and how, it's okay to go to the light side, but you don't want to go around boasting about how good, you do things, or how, what good you've done for other people. And it's okay to go into the dark side, but, not where you're willing to harm someone or anything like that. And I guess that's, that balance in Navajo is, what I think being Navajo means.
Very cool. That's awesome, actually. All right, and another thing that I wanted to ask you, this is getting a little more goofy with it. Do you have a favorite part of being Navajo, something that you really pride yourself on? And like, for example, for me, being Middle Eastern, I pride myself a lot on the food and the cuisine and the culture.
Yeah.
So I look at like eating things like hummus and falafels and shawarmas as like, this is like my favorite part of my culture. I'm so happy that this is something that we do on a regular basis. Do you have something like that? Take as much time as you need to think about it. No rush whatsoever.
Yeah, I guess the best part about, the Navajo culture to me is, just, again, about that balance.
Yeah.
And so, the greatest thing about it is, we're equal to everything around us. We're not above anything else. We're not below anything else. The animals, the plants, the landscape, everything around us is just, that balance throughout. And so that's I think the greatest thing about the Navajo.
Having that balanced lifestyle.
Exactly. And so, like I said, we're not above anything else. We're not below anything else. And so everything is equal. Yeah.
Alrighty. Now, let's get into something that's very interesting, I think, for the two of us. I think it's something we could both relate on. I love food, and I think Larson loves food just as much as I do. I want to jump into, because we've just been learning about, when we got here, kind of some of the traditional Navajo dishes.
Yeah.
Things like blue corn mush and
Chillhop.
Chin, and then there was the things that you said were more modernized, like nowadays, like Navajo tacos.
Yeah.
And is fry bread also something that's a little more modernized?
It is, yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, do you have a favorite Navajo dish? Something that when you think about it, it's like, this means home. This is like straight in my heart, my favorite kind of food from my culture.
I would have to say the Chillhop.
The chilchin.
Yeah, and so, chilchin's a sumac berry. And so the sumac we have here is not poisonous like on the East Coast where they have the poison sumac with the red leaves. Ones we have here have got the green leaves. And the little berries that grow on it, when you first, take it off the plant, it's very tart if you just eat it like that. But what they do is they collect a whole bundle of it and just grind it up. Once they grind it up, they let it dry out, and then they'll take the grinded parts, put in boiling water, and get flour and mix it with it. And when it comes to a boil, it simmers, it gets a little thick, and that's when it becomes chilchin. And so you just pour it into a cup and drink it just like water, but it's so good.
So good, huh?
Yeah, it's actually naturally sweet, so you don't even have to add any sugar in it.
That's awesome.
It's a bit sour as well, but it's really good. So chilchin.
Yeah, it's been really interesting learning about the different dishes and cuisines, because you don't really even think about that when traveling into a different part of the U.S. You just think U.S. food, we got a bunch of international stuff, but there's actually domestic dishes that trace back thousands of years here in this kind of Navajo Nation land. So let's jump into another subject here about the Navajo Nation. Can you tell us a little bit about the actual Navajo Nation, kind of what the area that it encompasses?
Yeah, so the Navajo Nation actually is 27,000 square miles. It's the largest reservation in North America. Also the largest amount of Native Americans, which is 500,000 Navajo people. And so the Navajo Nation covers New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah. And so it goes all the way up to just right before Cameron in Arizona. It goes all the way up right before Gallup, New Mexico, which is Window Rock, and then right to Page, Arizona. Right down the road here, we've got Mexican Hat, about 20 miles away, and so that's the whole Navajo Nation there.
And what about the people? What kind of language do you speak? What kind of, or what are the demographics? What kind of numbers are we looking at when it comes to the actual Navajos themselves?
So, like the language, and so the language, I would say about, language is kind of, it's kind of dying out, so they're trying to, enforce it in schools and different things like that. Like when I was growing up, and the schools that we went to were all public schools, and so you have to have 2 Navajo classes in order to graduate.
Wow,
so
really?
Navajo language, Navajo history, or Navajo studies. 2 of the 3 Navajo arts and crafts, 2 of the 4 you have to graduate. And so that's just what I kind of grew up with, is just being Navajo. But if you're not Navajo and you're in the school system here, then you don't have to take Navajo. It's not required of them. And then just growing up, a lot of the kids that I knew didn't speak Navajo, and so it is really interesting though. Some of the kids would be made fun of. We kind of joke around, call each other Johns, just
Johns.
like John.
Okay.
And so, but the way I noticed it in schools, is kind of looked down upon if you're more traditional, looked down as a lower class. And so that was really interesting growing up, because I grew up a very traditional lifestyle. Grew up speaking Navajo. Everybody in my home speaks Navajo, even today, and so that's how that works out.
Okay, sweet. And what about numbers? How many Navajos are out there? How many? So
500,000 Navajo people. So about 60-70% live off the reservation. About 30-40% live on the Navajo reservation. And so just because jobs are a lot easier to get elsewhere, housing is also a lot easier to get elsewhere. As on the Navajo reservation, it's a long process to get land, and so the only way you can have housing, if you want to get running water, electricity, propane, solar panels, you have to have a home site lease. And so without a home site lease, you won't be able to get any of those amenities.
Wow, interesting. And are the reservation, because it's always regarded to as a reservation, are they always off the grid, or are some of them integrated into cities, or how does that work? Is there a certain place where the reservation begins and ends and then turns into like just U.S. public land?
Yeah, so like Mexican Hat right down the road here, you've got the Navajo Nation, and right across the San Juan River is the Utah State.
Okay.
Yeah, that doesn't it doesn't change too much. Just that's where alcohol is legal and stuff like that.
Okay, interesting.
And so yeah, that's how.
So you just like cross a line, and then certain rules start applying or not applying.
Exactly, certain rules apply, and so like on the Navajo reservation, once you come onto the Navajo reservation, you can't have alcohol. If you're caught with it, they'll put it down the drain right in front of you.
Really?
And so...
Interesting. Okay, and so just to top this off, we're almost done here. We're getting close to the ending. I wanted to know if you could hit us with like 10 of what you would think would be the most like important Navajo words to know? Because we've covered, I think, about 3 together already.
Yeah.
But if you could give us like the words, 10 of them, just as translation, just any off the top of your head.
So the first one's always, you know, the most important would be yade, and that's hello.
Yade.
And then you've got ahe, and so that would be thank you.
Ah, yeah.
And then you've got, you know, hoshte means come here.
Hoshte?
And then you go ti means let's go. And then biga means okay, you know, are we good to go? You know, translations like that. And then we've got howan, which means home. So when I was growing up, you know, we used to hitchhike everywhere because my family couldn't afford a vehicle, and so, you know, stick our thumbs out alongside the highway. And every time, you know, a Navajo guy picked us up, or a Navajo lady, they would always say hago to my mom, and she would always say hawanko, and so, you know, going back home.
Wow, that's very cool.
So that's always how that worked out. And then, you know, sheep, you know, one of the most important, you know, parts of the Navajo culture as well. Debe is what we call it. And then we got goats, which is tize. And then horse, shi. And then cows, bekashi.
Bekashi. It's very cool dialect. Really cool, kind of like the pronunciations of words.
Yeah, exactly. And the Navajo language is actually derived from the Athabascan language. So you got the Comanches, the Shoshones, some of the Alaskan natives. We got Navajos, you know, our language derived from the Athabascan language. So when you trace it, it goes all the way back into Alaska, falling all the way back down into this area. And so it just covers,
So cool. All right, to end off here, this is a last kind of question. And this is totally optional. I can cut this out of the video 100% if you don't want to. Is there anything that you would like to tell people, if you had kind of a global audience to say just something to? Is there anything that you would like to spread, any type of message whatsoever?
Just be humble.
Be humble?
Yep. The most important part of the Navajo culture. You never go around, like I say, you never go around boasting about different things. And so, you know, there's always humility. And so that's probably the most important thing.
Fantastic. Larson, it has been an absolute pleasure traveling with you for the past day and a half. It has been amazing. We've learned so much from this person. So please make sure that, first of all, you check out Navajo Spirit Tours. You check out his Instagram. Will be linked down in the description below because he has amazing photography of this region. And if you guys want to come take a tour, you can check that out in the description and book a tour with them and even potentially travel with Larson himself.
Oh, yeah.
So come on down, enjoy this area because Monument Valley is absolutely incredible, and the Navajo Nation right behind us, you can see how open and wide and amazing. It never gets old. So we'll see you guys in the next one. I love you a long time. Goodbye, Clats.